Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiffany Dell, and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, where Paul is stuck in an airport somewhere as usual. But looking back on it, just an amazing weekend of really nail-biting finishes, you know, whether it was Formula 1, Formula 2, Formula 3 at Monza, there was World Sportscars in America, which was such a tight finish, Indycar, NASCAR. There were battles to the finish line everywhere. It was a great weekend of motorsport watching. And surprisingly, the least exciting and close race, it was MotoGP. But the result was still something very, very special that had probably Susie's tears in her eyes. But the racing wasn't that good. Just really in the news, not much news. We had Sargeant, we thought was going to get dropped after his Zandvoort crash, we thought. But they were talking about Schumacher going in, weren't they? Or I forget who the other second choice was. It was Schumacher or somewhere else. And boom, they go and promote Franco Colapinto, which everyone was pretty surprised with this Argentinian. I sort of put down tweets, you know, he hasn't sort of done enough, really. I know he's a Williams reserve, and he did FP1 at Silverstone, steady job, but he's obviously got... Well, they sort of pretend he hasn't got any money, but then they're now saying, however, having put an Argentinian in our car, we've got loads of interest from Argentinian sponsors now. So I don't know, but you know,
we mentioned last week it might be Stoffel Van Dorn, but
it's Stoffel. That was the other one, yeah.
And Liam Lawson.
Yeah, well, Felipe. I mean, I'm looking back at former champions. You know, Drogovic, who's stuck as Aston Martin's reserve. Teo Pourchaire, a former 2 champion, who's stuck as Alpine's reserve. Bring back Nick de Vries, who did such a good job at Monza, a year ago. Yeah. So, but no, they decided against, to everyone's surprise, to put Colapinto in. And you know, he was brilliant in Formula 4 Spain, and he's an Alonso protege slightly, I think. So he won a lot of Formula 4 in Spain, but I don't know what quality the Formula 4 in Spain is. But you know, commentators say he's won 3 Formula 3 races. You know, it's going to upset me, don't you? Because they were all reverse grid races. Same in he hasn't won a feature race in Formula 3 or Formula 2. It turned out, as we were talking about, he did quite a good job in there. He nearly stuffed it in qualifying, getting in the half in the dirt. So
Lawson did on that one corner, and we'll come on to the other rookie in a moment.
Yeah, lots of people dropping. Well, that was the other thing to come to, because of course they've changed Monza, big resurfacing, looks resplendent. I thought nice black circuit, lovely new flatter. Beautiful green, white and red Italian flag curbs. The place looked immaculate, but loads more gravel. And I think, you know, the loads more gravel is the way that is going, and I think is working. I think over the weekend, there are lots of gravel out on the track, you know, and in qualifying they stopped the F3 to sweep the track, so much gravel on it. And of course, cars when they went off got stuck in the gravel, so you've got more safety cars to pull them out. But I think it worked. I think they're worried about the flatter curbs at Ascari chicane, sort of neutering that chicane, but the fact that in the middle right hand after the left in, a lot of people were dropping wheels into the dirt in the middle of the Ascari chicane, and it was slowing them down. You know, they lost momentum; they couldn't just stay flat.
And they were firm with you had to pass the bollard on the correct side, otherwise it was a penalty.
Yeah, there were lots of people going straight back on the track at the second chicane. People weren't going.
If they just cut a little bit,
they came back on a bit quickly. So, the track looked resplendent, and the qualifying looked amazing. But, you know, it's quite a simple track, if you say simple, if any tracks are simple. You know, and they're tenths of a second round there are so valuable. We had Lewis topping free practice 2 and free practice 3. We sort of got Lewis is going to be the boy this weekend. Then in Q3, he was 0.186 off the pace, 6th on the grid. I mean, it's a real blink, small mistakes at Monza in qualifying. Just 0.186, having dominated FP2 and FP3 and Q2. He was on top of the list in Q2, but made a mistake. Ended 6th. So we had the McLarens out front, Lando and Oscar.
You're kind of one step ahead, because I wanted to mention the other rookie that stood in, or not a rookie even, the signing for next year with Mercedes, Kimi Antonelli. Because, of course...
I missed that line. Of course, well done for bringing me back. Yes, because the other thing in the news, that was the second bit of news, was the official Kimi Antonelli. And then look what happened in FP1.
I know. I felt so bad for him. I really did.
I know.
He was pushing hard. Maybe too hard for him. Maybe, I don't know.
Did you see that picture I tweeted? I thought it was my best tweet ever.
No.
Did you not see it? Oh, because when the car was in the barriers, I don't know what the sponsor's name is, but amongst the sponsor's names in the middle of it, ANT, ANT, which is his official abbreviation. And beside the ant that was left of the broken barrier was a green arrow pointing towards the wrecked Mercedes. So it's just ant parked here. It was quite amazing to have those three letters just broken up off the barrier to create. But apparently the lap he was on, I mean, the Mercedes, I suppose they have to say it in a way to justify the side. They just said the lap he was on was just amazing. You know, he was just going so quick straight away, but obviously a bit too quick. But it doesn't matter for him. He's got the job.
What would happen next year if Max Verstappen says he wants to step in? I mean, it wouldn't be next year, but the year after, I guess. I guess they'll drop George over
Well,
Antonelli.
they'd talk about that in the magazines today on the internet. They're saying that it's going to be a shootout between George and Antonelli. You know, so George is going to have to be on form, and he'll have to hold off against this kid. I think, you know, Toto probably hopes Antonelli's going to blow George away, and he can have Antonelli and Verstappen, the dream team, maybe dream team. But yeah, we've forgot about Antonelli. Yes, of course, George had a damaged car to qualify. I mean, well in qualifying, George, and he ended up third.
He did. He always does. And he did better than Lewis again in qualifying.
Yeah. So what we had at the end, well, of course, we had the two McLarens out front, didn't we? And then George and Leclerc second row, Sainz and Hamilton sixth, and the two Red Bulls on the fourth row. Albon did a good job to get through to ninth.
He's class. 10th. He's really class.
You know, Franco he qualified 18th, you know, which I can't expect too much. But he was only, this shows what the track's like, for trying to work out who's the most talented and who's got the best car. He was only 1.15 seconds off pole position in a Williams on his Grand Prix debut. I mean, the car is so important now. You know, it is tragically, you know, a driver, you can't drive 0.1 or 0.2 faster. You just drive what the car will take. And if you push the car too much, you lose a 10th. That's the trouble. You tried to go a bit faster, like Hamilton maybe did, and boom, you've lost a 10th at the first sector one. I lost a 10th. What's a 10th between you and me?
We're just talking before we came on air about football and the Premiership or any football league. You have your top sort of 5 or 6, your top little percentage. It's the same because you've got the top 4 and they're so far ahead. If you add the other 6 manufacturers together, I think they've got less than half the points that Mercedes got. So it's or even less than that. So it's a massive gap.
You've got to be in. But now moving on to the race, this is all about now the talk for the next 2 years is going papaya rules. I think McLaren, they probably shot themselves in the feet by telling people papaya rules. Because at the moment it's not too much. So I'm looking ahead now. So we're going to talk about the first 2 corners with Oscar and Lando. So say 2025, you know, McLaren is the best car, is the Red Bull of the past, which is it is at the moment. But at the moment, the only thing they can probably get is the Constructors' Championship, probably easily. But really, the driver's title is, you know, there's going to be a lot of mistakes by Max to lose. It's still possible, just about. But if next year they've got the dominant car, you've got 2 really talented, skillful youngsters. And of course, as a Grand Prix driver, you're like, Button will tell you, Jensen will say, you know, you've got to wait till you've got the car for that year, and that's the one time you might grab a world title. So these 2 boys are not going to want to be number 1s and 2s and pushed around. They're going to want to race, which of course everyone tweets, oh, let them race, let them race. But hold on, I'm McLaren. I'm Andrea Stella. I've created my papaya rules. And I'm paying you 2 millions of pounds each, dollars each, to drive for me. And I want to win the Constructors' Championship. McLaren, I want one of you to be the driver's champion. And so I'm a big believer of, you know, unfortunately, you've got to have driver rules. You've got to have team orders. Because, you know, then what happened in turn 2, if that sort of happens more next year, and both those 2 kids think they can be world champion, they could so easily be in both cars in the gravel at the second chicane. And to my mind, if I'd written the papaya rules, I'd say, yes, you can race. You know, you can close in, get DRS, overtake in a safe area, but you don't go side by side around the second chicane, having led down, having made a great start, got through that awful first chicane and not lost your front wing or your rear wing. You're running 1-2. You don't go around the outside.
It was a crazy move. It was a ridiculous move. Personally, I think it's quite simple. I think that whoever's in front should have priority.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But if you're going to win, they shouldn't jeopardize that. No team rules, whatever. Whoever's in front, whatever the situation. However, if you're second or third, like they were yesterday, I would have swapped Max all day long. Lando and Oscar all day long. Well,
you couldn't have swapped them because they had Leclerc. You couldn't swap them because you had Leclerc in between. By the way, I apologise for Paul's sound. Paul's sound's worse because he's in an airport. I know you'll complain about our sound. You can still understand what he's saying. It's our sound. We're going to sort sound out one day.
At the end of the race, we're talking end of the race now. We're talking team rules.
Right towards the end, but Oscar was catching for the win. I know you couldn't have swapped them really. Maybe the last lap coming out of the last corner. Oscar puts the brakes on. Well, mate, that's like going back to Barrichello and Schumacher, wasn't it? Way back in Austria when they did that, when he deliberately put on the brakes. Or it was it Rubens? But you've got to have team. I'm afraid of the top team. Because for Orlando, you had to sort of give him the place, really, because if he contested it and clobbered Oscar, it was just, if you're talking papaya rules, just don't, you escape chicane 1, first and second, then you stay that order for chicane 2. You don't challenge a teammate.
Absolutely.
Anyway. But I think they're going to have, Andreas Senna's going to have big problems in 2025, or maybe the rest of this year.
Well, no, I don't think the rest of this year because it's clear that Lando is the only one that could possibly fight for the championship. But I think, and Oscar clearly did that because he knew that unless he did that in the first lap, it was going to be team rules the whole way. Well, Lando's in front. Lando's let it set in pace, let him stay there. But in a way, he jeopardised and compromised Lando's race, not just for the first or second, but with Charles as well. Because then with Charles in front, it made such a big difference with.
Well, you could argue it gave Leclerc the win. Yeah, if he hadn't came out second place, gifted second place, and he would have been behind 2 McLarens and maybe dropped away. But anyway, we then had a wonderful race. So after that, I mean, there was not much dicing. It was an absorbing Grand Prix, as Grand Prix should. But it all came down to the tyres. And it was just that everyone seemed to panic, I think. These medium tyres, everyone was one stop. The plan was one stop. It's a one-stop track. And then all the guys, my tyres have gone to shit. My tyres have gone. So they sort of all panicked and stopped early to go on to the harder tyre, thinking, the harder tyre, we'll go the rest of the race on the harder tyre. Then hold on a minute, Verstappen's coming in because the harder tyre's not working. And then he puts on more hard tyres, so he has to stop. So I think Ferrari, everybody planned a one-stopper. But I think Ferrari were the only ones that sat back a bit and thought, hold on a minute. They're all two stopping. Why don't we try and not stop the second time? So it was a great tension, and the Tifosi and the fans and their cheers.
Don't you say Tifosi? How many times did they say Tifosi yesterday? It must have said about 30 times.
But it was a wonderful, wonderful sight. It always is. Ferrari winning at Monza. It was 2.5 seconds the gap in a minute. Got it down to 2.5 seconds. But he had to get by Sainz, didn't he, to get there? And just didn't quite make it.
Are you into conspiracy theories at all?
In what? So you are bad sound, by the way.
Conspiracy theories.
Oh no!
Lewis Hamilton winning. Lewis Hamilton winning at British Grand Prix.
Yes.
Charles Leclerc winning at his home Grand Prix.
No, I'm not in any conspiracy theories.
No, neither am I. Actually, didn't win in Holland.
Oh dear! George, of course, messed up his good qualifying by going in too deep at turn 1 and bashing his wing, and ended up 7th. Good comeback. Lewis didn't sort of come on in the race at all. I was expecting after his pace in qualifying for him to come strong, but he never really showed his nose too much. A bit of a disappointing 5th, max 6th. And of course, Checo came last of the 8, the big 8. He's always last of the big 8. Albon 9th, good run for him. K-Mag, of course, should have been 9th, but he's got penalised 10 seconds or something, so he went down to 10th because he had a bit of a clash with Gasly at the silly second chicane. And then he got 2 points for the clash, and Gasly said, whoa, hold on a minute, don't give it, because it's now got 12 points and he's lost his licence for a race. And even Alonso probably got upset by K-Mag at several races, said, you've got to go back. Some of K-Mag's points might have been just a pit lane exit or a crew doing a bad a bad release. You're trying to clean your screen and make it better. So he's out of the next Grand Prix. He's got a one-race ban, K-Mag, now, which means, of course, that Oliver Behrman's the obvious person to have his second Grand Prix, not quite a Ferrari, but in a Haas. But, you know, the Haas, Hulkenberg
That's no slow coach.
No. Yeah. And it's the track where he had an amazing sweep last year in the Formula 2. It was one where he won both the reverse grid and the proper feature race. So Behrman's quick round, so he could be a top 10 qualifier if he's out there. So that's something to look forward to. But I feel a bit sorry for K-Mag for embarrassed from getting kicked out. And of course, Behrman won the sprint race. Formula 2 was they're all over the place in Formula. So you got any more Grand Prix stories to talk about or not?
No,
something else?
I think I'm going to be quiet with my awful audio, even more awful than usual audio.
That's sort of echoey. I don't know, where are you in? You're in a lounge. British Airways. You kind of phone up British Airways and get a better studio for you.
It's so busy at Heathrow, and I'm trying to find a quiet corner, which is mission
You're
impossible.
in a toilet. You're in a toilet. Don't tell me you're in a toilet.
I'm in a corridor.
Anyway, so we look forward to Behrman in a Haas at Baku. Is something for us to enjoy. Behrman won the sprint race for about 7th on the grid, I think. But it was chaotic Formula 2. They're all banging into each other, going off the road, clobbering each other. There was gravel everywhere. Lots of people upset. That stupid first chicane was causing so many problems with people overtaking, dive bombing.
Dive bombing is crazy. But there's a lot of dive bombing when the F1's race.
Who won the main race? I've forgotten now. My brain's gone. I didn't write it down. Don't know who won the main event. It doesn't matter. Someone won the main race.
Top quality podcast.
Hadja had a bad time. I forget where the championships go. I didn't look up the F2 championship. But anyway, look it up yourself. I forgot. Formula 2 wasn't the most exciting of all the races.
I've got all this
the Formula 3
on my phone, but I can't get to my phone because I've got all this information on my phone, but I can't get to my phone because I lose the picture. It's top quality stuff.
I can't find it now. But the best race was Formula 3. Really, the Formula 2 race was just lots of people banging wheels and good, but not brilliant. Who won this? I saw the main race. But Formula 3, of course, we had Luke Barrett, 3 drivers within 1 point in the Formula 3. The last rounds, the sprint race and the main race. But qualifying was a chaotic thing. And Luke Browning, the British driver, hopefully one of the 3, just qualified way back in for the sprint race and the main race. There were penalties galore. Everyone was getting dropped 5 places and 3 places. I couldn't catch up with who was on the grid where. But we had this farcical thing when they went out for first qualifying. They were in 2 groups this time. They split them, so there's not too many cars because it's one of these slipstream tracks. These slipstream tracks, the driving is just getting terrible. And the guy that got out front just went slower and slower and slower. And when he went out the Lesmo, nobody would overtake him. They came out of Lesmo, the second Lesmo, half around the lap. And there was a queue of 10 cars doing 3 miles an hour, apparently. And nobody would overtake. And then someone came around and went to the back of one in front and did his nose. They red flagged them, brought all the children in and tried to make them work together. But to my mind, the person at the front, I didn't get the name. I can't be bothered to go and look at the video. He should be banned for the rest of the year. It was the season ending anyway. He should have been banned from the race meeting. The one at the front, okay, the others that wouldn't overtake him are equally guilty. The one leading with nothing in front of him, doing 2 miles an hour on a racetrack. Anyway,
what was interesting, back to Formula 1, was Bradley Lord from Mercedes said that you get a turn. Monza's a tow track, and you get the tow down the States, but it's faster. We prefer them to be in clean air because it's faster with going faster around the corners with less drag, with more drag, with more.
That's a Formula 1 thing. A Formula 1 thing, I think, slightly, but I think Formula 3, the slipstream is more important.
Okay.
So end up just being the 2 Italians that really were vying for the championship, Gabriele Mini and Luca Fornaroli. And it was just this most amazing track because Sam, the Australian guy, got the lead. It was actually Fornaroli's teammate, Sam Megatunif. Australian, he actually got a bit of a lead in the final, so he was ahead. So that him winning the race stopped Mini getting the maximum points, which he needed to get past Fornaroli. But then Christian Mansell, the Aussie, got involved. He's an Aussie, yeah. Both Aussies. I just realised they're both 2 Aussies there. He got involved with this battle for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And when he was 4th and Fornaroli was 3rd, Fornaroli would win the championship. But when Fornaroli was 4th and Mini was 2nd, Mini would win the championship. It was just changing the drama. Every overtake was going on. And now he's going to win the championship. Now he's going to win the championship. And Fornaroli was losing it. Mini was second. Mansell was third. Fornaroli fourth. And he just dive-bombed him into the parabolic on the last lap. It was a move that Mansell had to give him the space because it was just a crazy dive. Nobody overtakes there normally. You don't normally overtake there because you're waiting for the DRS past the pit. So you normally stay behind because then you overtake into the first chicane. But it was a brilliant move. And so he won the championship. And he's never won a race all year. So people... but I mean, it is difficult because, I look at Colapinto's results, and sort of saying he hasn't won any races, but the talent is still there. So it's harsh to just look at results. But to be fair, of the 10 races, the 10 feature races, forget all the other winners, there were 7 different winners in Formula 3 this year. Only 3 drivers won 2 races, and that was Mega Tunif with his second win at Italy, and the 2 Brits, Browning and Lindblad. So only 3 drivers got 2 wins, and the other 4 have got a win each. So winning isn't easy in Formula 3.
It's funny in motorsport or any sport, the such fine margins. So triumph for him and jubilation for him, but just leaving that door open, just that little bit too much. You've got to be absolutely gutted to be overtaken on that last corner there. But
however,
good stuff.
There was a sting in the tail which didn't matter in the end. But had Fornaroli crashed out with Mansell, he would have been crying at the end of the day because Mini was disqualified for low tyre pressures after the race. So Mini wouldn't have won the championship anyway, as it turned out. But it would have been a scandal had Mini won the championship. He would have then been disqualified. All the Italians would have been crying, and then next minute, you're disqualified, you out. And it was brilliant drama, proper racing, proper stuff.
Good stuff.
So Monza was entertaining, as always. Too many chicanes, but there we go. Bit of a silly track, not as good as it's made out to be, but never mind. So next when we go to America. America, last night. The World Endurance Show, the Sportscars, fantastic. That is getting better and better. But I hardly ever get to watch it because something else is going on. It's Sunday evening, you've got Indycar. But this was a 6-hour race around Kota. And the qualifying's amazing now. The top 9 had 6 different manufacturers, and half a second covered the top 6, I think it was, on the grid. So we had Ferrari on pole, Cadillac was 3rd, Alpine were 4th, Porsche 6th, BMW 7th, Toyota's best was 9th. So it's getting closer and closer. But it was a pretty hectic race. Again, I haven't seen it or watched it because, of course, they're always diving inside GT3s.
But it's getting closer and closer because of the balance of power, sure.
Yeah. It's artificial. Yeah, it's artificial. But then that's what, unfortunately, apart from Formula 1, will never be there, in my opinion, or Formula 2 or Formula 3. If you want manufacturers to pay billions, because it's so expensive now, you're not going to get a manufacturer to pay the billions to join the club if you say, well, you've got no chance of winning, Because if you spent 20 billion, you'd probably beat the team that only spends 5 billion. And that's the problem. The budgets, the science, the cost of science. So unless you stop, well, Formula 1 have got their budget cap now. So in a way, that's a bit of a sort of balance of power because it stops teams with more money, having better cars than lesser ones. Anyway, it was Toyota who only qualified 9th, the best Toyota. They looked like they'd win again. Their racecraft is always there. Although the Ferrari led a lot. But Kamui Kobayashi had a yellow flag drive-through infringement just about half an hour towards the end of the race, which allowed Robert Schwartzman in the privately owned, the customer AF Corsa run Ferrari 499P to get in the lead. And Kobayashi was tracking him down, and it was a bit like Oscar chasing Leclerc, exactly the same thing. Kobayashi tried to get back to the front, but he failed by a few seconds. And Schwartzman won with the Ferrari, which he shares with Robert Kubica. So Robert fans, there's always Robert fans around the world should have been happy, along with wifey Yi, the Chinese boy. So it was close again. Great after 6 hours. There was 6 cars, I think, on the lead lap. There was factory Ferrari was 3rd, the Cadillac was 4th, Alpine 5th, Porsche 6th. So entertaining stuff. World Endurance. Indycar in America, again, wonderful entertainment. There's just so much. They had a double header. They went back to the Milwaukee Mile, one of the most famous American. It was a 1903 open as a dirt track. It got paved in 1954 to become a paved oval.
Let's just qualify that for the English speaking. Paved doesn't mean block pavers; it means
tarmac. It wasn't dirt anymore, asphalt or whatever, or concrete. I don't know. Sometimes they make concrete tracks. And in 1963, Jim Clark had the first ever IndyCar win for a rear-engine car when the Lotus won before he won at Indianapolis. But actually dropped it as a NASCAR, as an IndyCar track in 2016. So it's been out for 8 years. So it was a big comeback to the Milwaukee Mile. Big crowd turned up. And it was just wild entertainment. I mean, the championship battle, the underlying story was this championship battle between Alex Palou with the Ganassi car and Will Power in the Penske team, who were the 2 points leaders. That was the sort of underlying championship battle. But it was just drama everywhere. I mean, notes are all scrambled as so many complicated things. Joseph Newgarden, the Penske sort of oval specialist, he ended up with 2 retirements and crashes. He went out in the first race on the Saturday and clashed with Marcus Ericsson, went out. And then on the start line for race 2 on the Sunday, and this bizarre crash, which was a bit unfortunate because he was on pole, Newgarden. But they sort of threw the green or didn't throw the green, and then they changed it to the white. And it goes yellow. I don't know what they do. When they abort the start, so apparently the people at the back hadn't caught up to the pack, and so all of a sudden the starter aborted. But someone had thrown a green light. You could see it in pictures. So all the engineers, the spotters, went green, green, green. So the guys in rows 2 and 3, they were all going. Races started, but Newgarden on the front row could see the flagman more than anybody else because he was the lead car. So he's pretty looking at the flagman. He saw the flagman yellow it. So he backed off, maybe too much. He blamed all the other kids from behind. But sadly, it was Linus Lundqvist, this talented young Norwegian, sorry, one of those.
Scandinavian.
In one country isn't Scandinavian, that gets more confusing. Anyway, he clipped his teammate, Marcus Armstrong, a fellow Ganassi guy, who punted into poleman Newgarden and put him in the wall again. So Newgarden, the oval hero, had 2 retirements. But it was just everywhere was great. The overtaking around the outside, this little 1 mile, not very banked track. Race 1 was won by Pato O'Ward, which was a good win for McLaren. Will Power came second. So now the points are up. I forget where Palou finished race 1, but he was down the bit. Because in third was Connor Daly. Wonderful. So these stories, you think what American racing gives you. So he qualified 25th. Now, he's virtually been dumped on the shelf, Connor Daly. He's been in and out of IndyCar for years. He's the son of Derek Daly, who raced in Formula 3, big friend of mine. But whereas Derek's a very Irishman, Connor's a very American boy. And he's brought into this Junkers Hollander, this Argentinian team who dumped their driver Canapino because he was causing trouble and stuff. So Connor's got another chance to prove himself. Come from 25th to finish 3rd. And also entertaining all weekend was Santino Ferrucci, who's just this oval nutter. He qualified 19th and came to 4th. He was actually second, I think, at one stage. He was going around the outside, dive bombing everybody. And just the overtaking going on took your breath away all the time. But so race 2 then, so Palou now sort of, still got a big championship lead, about 33 points, more than a win. And his car breaks down on the outlap. Stops. So everyone's blaming the new hybrid systems. Everybody hates these living hybrids. And I didn't want to go fully anti-hybrid because, of course, an engine could break. People tell me that the electric people, well, you'll have a piston failure or something. In fact, it turned out just to be a blooming battery. Remember that Formula 3 race in Austria? I think you can see it on YouTube. Tiffany Dell in a Formula 3 car in 1978. And the little battery ran out. And that's all it was, apparently. It wasn't his hybrid system because he came out 33 laps later. And because of more and more retirement, still gained some points. Meanwhile, Will Power is now out leading race 2. And if he finishes and wins, he's going to lead the championship going into the last round. Is that calling you? Calling you. So if Power had won and Palou hadn't scored at all, I think Power would have had a 3-point lead going into the final round. So this flight number 643 will please go to gate. Nothing like live telly. So anyway, so Will Power is now battling for lead. But then There was a late restart after a yellow caution and stuff. And because some people didn't stop, as often happens, so you got a lot of people at the front 10, still old tyres, didn't pit, and then the leaders are 11th, 12th, 13th. Anyway, Power trying to get on the power, I didn't mean to do that, lit up. They spun out on his own on the restart, coming round turn 4. So poor old Will Power was about to be leading the championship. He recovered to finish 10th after his spin. So, Palau picked up a few points. I think he's still got a 40-point lead now, Palau. Who's talking now? Will you tell those announcers to shut up? We've got a podcast being recorded here. So anyway, Fulham, Colton Herta was third. Scotty McLaughlin won round 2. The old Aussie supercar driver. It's amazing the way he's adapted from supercars to Indycar. Fantastic driver, really good. He's a lovely bloke, big. Actually, not an Aussie, he's a Kiwi. I got it wrong, a Kiwi. Kiwis. That was a Kiwi 1-2. Scott Dixon came through the second. And Santino Ferrucci came through the fourth again. And it was just wonderful entertainment theatre. Great. Word for Catherine Legg, because Catherine Legg is doing the ovals only, the last few ovals of the year with some sponsorship. She had a 19th in race 1, a 15th in race 2, 27 cars on the track. So well done, Catherine, battling away for the women.
That's quality. She's been doing it a long time as well, hasn't she?
Well, she was in IndyCar about 10 years ago, then got kicked out and ended up doing GT, had a great career earning money. You know, she's guessing 40s now, so I mean, high 30s, early 40s. So, you know, she's just a wonderful woman that's been around earning money as a professional racing driver, which is what you need. In the NXT, of course, they had their final round, not the final, penultimate round, but Louis Foster dominated again, won the race, and has won the championship with a round left to go. So Louis Foster, the British driver, will get $1 million towards his trying to buy a ride or get himself a ride for IndyCar next year.
So will he get one? Does it become? There
are plenty of slots around. There's plenty of slots around. But funny enough, because Jamie Chadwick had both the Andretti cars, and often in ovals, as I said earlier, when Jamie was qualified second at a previous oval, you know, it's very much about getting the car right and then you just drive it with fresh tyres. You know, it's quite easy to get the ultimate out of the car. It's only when the tyres wear out after 10 or 20 laps, you start getting understeer, oversteer, loose or pushing, as Americans would say. So she ran second for quite a while, but eventually dropped out, finished 5th. So it's still a good result for Jamie. But it was funny because they were interviewing Andretti. Which Andretti? What's his name? Wrong Andretti, not Mario. So Andretti, the team boss. And he was the interviewer said, you know, do you think they can get a ride in IndyCar? And of course, they've had this big publicity stunt with Andretti. They've given Jamie Chadwick a test drive. So it's big publicity. Everyone's saying, will Jamie get the IndyCar drive? And then he said, well, maybe they can attract a drive somewhere if they do well. Well, not with your team, then, obviously.
What do you mean if they do well? He's won the championship, but Jamie is more likely to get an IndyCar drive than Louis. Sadly,
yes,
for Louis,
because she'll attract the sponsorship that's needed, probably. But it's a big step. It's a big step. So anyway, that was in the NXT. That was Milwaukee mile over. Then NASCAR again. That's the final round before the playoffs. You could win to get in, or else it was on points. And it was another fantastic last lap battle around the Darlington 1 1/3 mile track, a track where you hug the concrete wall at 180 miles an hour with the wall an inch away from you permanently. And it ended up after tyre swaps and lots of carnage and crashes and strategy with Chase Briscoe driving his Stuart Haas car. Stuart Haas are pulling out of NASCAR, so, you know, it's not going to happen anymore. So the team's leaving, but he was battling with Kyle Busch.
Have they been around for a long time?
Yeah, I don't know when because Haas had a team, and then Stuart joined them. I think it was, I don't know when they joined together to create the Stuart Haas. Stuart, of course, the former driver and star. But yeah, so it ended up with a 2-car race towards the end with Kyle Busch, who finished second, of course, at Daytona in the last round. And he was chasing Chase Briscoe, chasing. I'm doing it with power and chasing. I'm doing it right here. But he couldn't get by him last lap. It was just on his bumper and couldn't get close enough to tap him, even if he'd wanted to. So Chase Briscoe won through to the 16-car playoff that starts the next round, whereas Kyle didn't. The first time since 2012 he hasn't been in the playoffs and hasn't won a race because he's got this record of winning 19 years on the trot. He's won at least one race. But he can still do that. He's still got 12 races to win a race. There's still 12 races to go in these playoffs. The other thing that happened at the end of this race was that the driver points champion is sorted out. Kyle Larson finished fourth with 859 points, but Tyler Reddick, by finishing 10th, got 860 points. And after 27 races, Tyler Reddick has become the points champion with Kyle Larson second. So, and these the points champion gets bonus points for the playoffs. So if you won races, you take a few trophies with you. So you start the playoffs. So Kyle Larson starts the playoffs with 2,028 points. I think they all get 2,000. Then you get extra points you've earned during the whole season. So your season results. So I think then Tyler Reddick, by winning the championship, got an extra 10 points or something. So he's on 2028. Whereas Martin Truex Jr., the last of the 16 to get in, has only got 2004. So they start the playoffs with the season winners having an advantage. I know you're not interested.
Well, it's just so confusing. It's
it's not once you get your head around it. You concentrate. It's always written up on the screen for you. They write it up. They write it up. And in the end, the 16 going through the playoffs, 14 have got through by winning races. So the only two to go through the point system, the 15th and 16th, are Ty Gibbs and Martin Truex Jr. Chris Buescher lost out by 6 points.
And out of interest, where were they in the points tables? Were they like top 3, top 5, top 10?
Who?
Where were they? Where did they finish in that overall
the 15th and 16th? 15th and 16th. So they were down there in the overall points. So those points are the same as the other points.
I thought you meant they came in at 15th and 16th in the playoffs positions. No. Okay.
Because of their driver.
It's so confusing.
Anyway, it's entertainment. The main thing is it's entertaining and there's drama building. Whereas MotoGP wasn't so entertaining. Bizarrely, the formula we follow the most and rave about down at Aragon in Spain. I actually went on the wiki to find out where Aragon was, because I didn't really know. It's actually just west of Barcelona, probably 100 miles, I don't know, 50 miles. It's west of Barcelona, up in the sort of eastern side of Spain. And by Googling it, I found out there's a bloody Tilke circuit, which now I know why. It's got 3 million corners and one huge long straight. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I've always looked at that track thinking it's got lots and lots of corners. Why? It's because of Tilke.
Where's the perfect track for you? Where's the perfect circuit?
It has to be a circuit. I don't know. I can't think of that now. But there needs to be a series of corners, a medium straight we can overtake. A series of corners, a medium straight we can overtake. A series of corners, a medium. So there's 3 times a lap where you could overtake. Obviously, the motorbikes, MotoGP, they could overtake more than cars can. If that's a car circuit, you'd just be waiting till the big long straight, like the Nürburgring, where Tilke grew up. You know, equal GT3 cars with equal drivers on equal tyres, they cannot overtake for a whole lap of the Nürburgring till you get to the big long straight. So that's why Aragon has got lots of corners and a big long. Anyway, it didn't do good. Maybe that's why the racing wasn't that good. But the point was, it was a Marc Marquez weekend. And Susie with tears, tissues and everywhere because Marc Marquez has come back. Commentators driving me mad again because they've done this often on other formulas, because it's 1,021 days since Marc Marquez won a Grand Prix. Oh, God. So now I've lost my ear. I've lost the ear. So I've lost everything. I'm gone now. I'm completely gone. So when he says it's 1,021 years since he won a Grand Prix, I've now got to stop during the race and think, well, how long ago? So divided by how many years, how many days in the year? 365. So it's about 3 years. Now, a lap of the race has gone by while I've been working that out. Why not just tell us since March 2023? Why not just tell us he hasn't won a race since March 2021? Don't come up with these stupid statistics. Crofty would love that one. Stupid statistics of days. They just tell us when it was or how many years. Anyway, it's about 3 years since Marcus was won a MotoGP race. He's had all his injuries and his arm broken in half and rebuilt and twisted the bones round to give him a different... Oh, amazing what he's done to come back to. And he just bossed it. He was on pole position. He won the sprint race by 3 seconds. He won the main race by 5 seconds. And the Marc Marquez grandstand was there. And when he won the Grand Prix, he got off the bike and he got the back of a marshal's bike and rode him up a dust track to go to in front of the Marc Marquez grandstand.
Amazing.
Oh, it was just fantastic. And of course, he's on the 2023 satellite Ducati, Gresini Ducati. So he's not even on the best bike. But so that was really the story about Marc Marquez. But otherwise, Jorge Martin is obviously back in the championship with the factory, Francesco Bagnaia's factory Ducati. Martin had a great weekend. He finished second twice, all very well. But Bagnaia had a disaster weekend. And he was only ninth in the sprint. He made a terrible start. Those drag bikes. He was on the inside of the track. And his drag bike got wheel spin and he was weaving all over the flip. He dropped from like third on the grid to ninth and never really recovered. Bad weekend for Bagnaia. And then the main race, Alex Marquez, Marc's brother, was running third in the other Gresini Ducati, so obviously doing well. Bagnaia was trying to get past him, was catching him, and Alex Marquez outbraked himself slightly, went wide into a turn left. We're talking about dreaded S-bend, use S-bends that causes trouble. So Bagnaia then gets inside him on the left and goes round, and so wants to get to the apex of the right-hand exit to this S-bend. But Marquez is still recovered from running wide, but he's halfway up the inside of Bagnaia, and Bagnaia just closed into him. Now, Bagnaia raved about being taken. I had this horrendous crash.
Bagnaia said it was intent, and he heard him put the accelerator. He heard him open up the throttle when he got right by him. He heard him open up the throttle. That's what he said.
Well, he was probably, but he was closing him down. You know, so obviously Alex thought that he would be given room, so he was probably opening the throttle to get his place back. But instead, we had this horrendous crash. You know, where Marcus's bike was on top of Bagnaia.
Yeah. And
off they went. So he's had a disastrous points drop. We're still about, I don't know, loads of races still to go.
Was
Pedro Costa?
Stop saying disaster. Stop saying disaster.
No, all right, you've done that.
Somebody told me.
Yeah, all right, yeah, you told me.
Exactly.
I told you.
Yeah, exactly.
The BBC told me. Don't use the word
Twice you
disaster.
said disaster.
I get carried away. Costa inherited third place once those two crashed. He had a good weekend, 2 third place. So Pedro Costa had a really good weekend. Moto2, Jake Dixon cruised it, pole position, smiling, dedicated his win. He's lovely the way he thinks of these things. There's a superbike MotoGP rider that does BBC commentary in Britain, and I can't remember his name, it's really annoying me, whose son's got, I think it's cancer, early form of cancer. God, it's a French name, it's a French rider. Anyway, and he dedicated the win to him. He just does lovely things like that. And he'd talk about, I can't believe, mate, I'm in a Grand Prix driver, you know, I'm winning Grand Prix.
I love it. Love it.
He's just, but funny enough, he beat into second place the guy riding the bike that he's riding next year, because he's moving up to this team that's won the championship 2 or 3 times. And yet he seems to have got his team now winning races on the pace. So anyway, Moto3 was processional, weird Moto3 race. Even the Moto3 race was boring. Both nights, it rained heavily. And the Moto3 were first out for qualifying and stuff. So qualifying was a bit iffy. The track was a bit damp and they had to try and find a dry line. And this David Alonso was on one stage, was on pole 1.5 seconds quicker than anyone. This Colombian kid that's just leading everything. And he won pole by about half a second. But the race then, it was a dodgy track because it was all a bit damp. And he just pulled out a 1.5 second lead of the first lap. And there was a good bunch behind it were quite entertained for a while. But then they didn't know what tyres, because they hadn't any practice with the track drying. And they all chose sort of slightly different tyre combinations. I don't know who had medium, who had soft, who had whatever. Anyway, the tyres lost his tyres. David Alonso, he dropped back to 4th. They're really spread out, the top 4. They all just spread out because they all struggled to keep their tyres to last. But it was good for the Spaniard Jose Rueda, because it gave him a Spanish win. So he won. And Alonso was 4th. And Scott Ogden he qualified 12th, one of his best, but dropped to 16th. The MotoGP, I'm afraid, on the entertainment ranking was bottom of my list.
But you know what? Next week is going to be top, because I'm going to Misano next week. So it's going to be action-packed.
You said Misano, which confused me. You don't even know where you're
Marino.
going anymore. You're so busy flying away on freebies, you don't even know where you're going.
San Marino, Italy, Misano.
No, San Marino,
Yeah.
Italy, Imola. San Marino Grand Prix in Formula One.
Yeah.
It was always the San Marino Grand Prix. Where did we have the awful accident that changed the history of motorsport? Imola.
Yeah.
San Marino. Right?
San Marino, Imola. No. It's Misano.
No, it's not. That's what you said last week.
It is.
When you go there, you're going to look very lonely.
It's not Imola.
Walking around the Misano racetrack with no crowd. Oh, there's no motorbikes here. This is a bit quiet.
It is San Marino. But I'm with you because I went years ago to the San Marino Grand Prix. I went like years and years ago in the
and where
90s.
was it? It was at Imola, wasn't it?
But it is Misano. It's definitely Misano. Okay.
Well,
so
I checked it because I knew you'd said that, so I went and checked it.
Who do you want to speak to? Who do you want to speak to and ask any questions to, like a proper journalist?
So, that does what's coming next week. A MotoGP go to the San Marino Grand Prix, which might be in Imola or Misano, depending on who you're listening to. World Rally Championship in Greece for the Acropolis, not the Acropolis of old, long distance, but still a really tough rally. World Superbikes and Magny Cours for Toprak Razgatlioglu to demonstrate his talents again. NASCAR begin their playoffs at Atlanta, a 1.5 mile oval. And worth going to Donington. British GT cars are the main thing going on in Britain at Donington with the penultimate round. Have you checked Misano and Imola yet?
I can't check anything. I feel naked today. I can't. My phone's here, being used.
Well, I know everyone's switched off already because they're fed up with not hearing us properly. But I shall now have a quick Google.
It's Misano. MIASANO. Misano is the Grand Prix next week because I'm going.
Well, where are you reading that from?
I'm not reading it anywhere. I know that's what it is. That's where I'm going. I hope I know where I'm going. They've sent tickets.
It says it's a Formula One championship.
Listeners and viewers, thanks for tuning in.
I can't hear you.
Spectacle.
I'm going to complain about the sound again on this flipping podcast. I'm not listening to your podcast anymore. Unless you make the sound better.
Next week. Then we can't.
Have a good. Where are you going now anyway?
Near Aragon. See you next week. Thanks for joining.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.